Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. Oh Jesus, oh my god. Guys, Oda had some things to say today, and I think that these things are gonna be of interest to you. Because if your reaction is anything like my reaction to this information, you're about to lose your mind. But as always, huge thanks to all of the translators in the English One Piece community. This time I got this information from Yonko Productions. I can't read Japanese, a lot of you can't read Japanese, we're not in Japan, so we wouldn't know this without people like them, so thank you. Link to Yonko Productions' Twitter will be in the description, that way you can stay on top of it, and you don't need me. At the One Piece stage today, there was lots of One Piece news to talk about. They were talking about the live-action film, they were talking about the new game Dawn, all of which could probably be a video on its own. Maybe I'll talk about it, but probably somebody else will end up talking about it. But what is most interesting to me is what Oda had to say about the actual One Piece story, the manga. And so let's start off about the hype surrounding the upcoming major war, which should be soon in terms of One Piece in the story. This is a quote. Marineford will look cute compared to what's to come, from Eiichiro Oda's mouth himself. In fact, if I recall correctly, this is actually something that Oda has said previously, that he never really thought Marineford would be as huge as it ended up being, that the things that were coming later on in the story would be greater, and Oda is re-emphasizing it here now in 2017. And so here's my perspective on hype, okay guys? There's some possibility, right, that our imagination for how great it's going to be is not going to live up to how good it actually is. And so because of this, a lot of people might rage. So obviously we don't know how good it is. It could be, it could meet our expectations, the greatest thing that we have ever seen, ever. But if it doesn't, just keep in mind that this is just what Oda expects. Even when I make videos about One Piece theories, there's certain ones that I think that people are really going to enjoy, and then I actually make the video, and then people don't like it as much as I thought they would. I also make some videos that I don't think are as good as some of my other ones, and people absolutely love them. So this is just Oda's perspective. He thinks that Marineford in comparison will be cute. And that is absolutely enough for me. We've been talking a lot about Kaido and Wano, and the possibility, or the probability really, that there's some huge war that involves the Marines, maybe other Yonkos. It's just going to be a huge war. It's essentially going to be the parallel of Marineford after the time skip. Even Kaido said himself that he intends on starting the greatest war this world has ever seen in the past century. So I think that it's reasonable to assume that this is what Oda is talking about. This great war that'll make Marineford look cute is Kaido's arc. So if Kaido's war is proportionally greater than Marineford, what could it possibly entail? Well, Marineford in essence was a Yonko and his crew growing up against the Marines. We got a little bit of action with Shanks and Blackbeard, but all things considered, they played minor roles in terms of the overall combat. So what kind of war would be greater than a Yonko going up against pretty much the entirety of the Marines? Perhaps multiple Yonko fighting simultaneously, while they also fight the Marines. I've talked at length about the parallels that can be found after the time skip with the events that occurred before the time skip. Essentially, Oda takes some of the things that occurred and twists them in new directions. We're not going to talk a lot about that here, but in terms of Marineford, how can you twist, but basically, how do you parallel Marineford while twisting what actually occurred? And so I think the most interesting thing is the fact that in Marineford, both Blackbeard and Shanks were present, but overall, they didn't do as much as they could have. Blackbeard used it as an opportunity to gain new power, but didn't really show off that power in that fight, decided that it wasn't yet time. In addition to this, Shanks showed up to Marineford, but as soon as he showed up, the war ended. So if you're taking Marineford, but you're making it different, I think you have Blackbeard and Shanks show up, but this time it is all-out war. There won't be Kobe and Sengoku now to tell the Marines to stop. And Kaido won't be dying quite as easily as the sick Whitebeard. And in Marineford, Whitebeard wasn't aiming for destruction, his goal was to rescue Ace. But Kaido's motives are probably not the same. Kaido wants to destroy this world. No punches held, Kaido probably will not stop until he either gets captured or he dies. The motives themselves create a far more intense war. Anyway guys, I have an entire video talking more in depth about this. I'll include it in the description, so let's move on to the next thing. Another thing that I found really interesting about what Oda had to say was that Marineford will look cute compared to what's to come. Not that Marineford will look cute compared to Wano. And so I've talked about this a lot, and maybe I'm a bit biased, but I do think that there's some potential that the Kaido arc is split into two parts, similar to how the Rescue Ace arc was split into two parts, Impel Down and Marineford. The fact that Oda was not specific here validates me slightly. But it really doesn't matter when it happens, this is only just a theory. Just keep in mind that if we get to Wano and you don't see this major war happening immediately, keep in mind that it could just be the first part of the entirety of the Kaido arc. But this isn't really what I wanted to talk about. This is not what I think will really blow your mind. This is stuff that we already figured from what Oda has said in the past to what the editor said about Wano. We expected great things, and for it to end up being better than Marineford. In fact, I think the editor said specifically that the Wano arc will surpass Marineford. So let's look at something else Oda said. And I quote, "During the next year, I'll be introducing a legend that's been laying dormant in the One Piece world. Perhaps he'll be related to Whitebeard." Oh baby, did that not get your blood boiling? I don't know about you guys, but I feel a little bit tingly. The hype is real. And so, let's break this down, right? Oda is going to introduce a legend that has been laying dormant in the One Piece world and has some relation to Whitebeard. Who could this be? I've seen several people already mention Edward Weevil. Weevil, the new Shishibukai, somebody who was compared to Whitebeard in terms of strength in his youth, also someone who claims to be Whitebeard's son. So we have a check mark in terms of relation to Whitebeard. But I don't think that Weevil is a legend, and I don't think that he has been laying dormant in the One Piece world, so I really don't think that Oda is referring to Edward Weevil. Another person that people are bringing up is the Golden Lion Shiki. Shiki is most definitely a legend, and somebody who we haven't actually seen him do anything recently, so laying dormant makes sense, and Shiki would have some off relation to Whitebeard for sure. Both being legends of the golden age of piracy along with Goldie Roger. So yeah, it could definitely be Shiki. I think that whether or not you believe this depends on your perspective on if Shiki's actually going to show up in the main story at all. Shiki obviously had a movie to himself. He was the main antagonist of the film Strong World, and so when it comes to movies, typically they're not considered canon, but at the very least you should expect if Shiki's going to have a major role in the actual story, that Oda wouldn't have given him a movie, or allowed him to be featured in a movie. When it comes to writing a story, like for instance Shiki's powers, that's something that you don't want to reveal outside of what it is that you're really trying to push, which is the manga. So yeah, consider me skeptical, but of course, I'm not going to completely rule out its possibility. Also, in addition, just to validate my skepticism just a little bit more, I'm unsure of really why Oda would mention Shiki's relationship to Whitebeard here. Like, that's not the first thing that would come to mind when trying to tease a legend, because the Shiki-Whitebeard connection isn't overly strong as far as we are aware. If I was Oda here and I was teasing Shiki, I would have said perhaps he'll be related to Goldie Roger. That I think would have made more sense. But I think the most obvious answer to who this is not as hype as perhaps we would assume it would be based on what Oda said. And maybe that's the one reason why a lot of people won't believe it. But again, the two conditions are a legend that has been laying dormant and has some relation to Whitebeard. This very well could be Marco. We know that Nekomamushi is currently looking for Marco and the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates to help in the fight in Wano, which has some relation to Kaido, so we should expect Marco to be part of this great war in some facet. So Marco has been laying dormant in the One Piece world for the past year. He does have some relation to Whitebeard. The only questionable thing here is whether or not Marco is considered to be a legend. But I think that you can argue it. But I personally wouldn't put Marco at legend status, which is probably why I won't believe this, even though this is the most obvious answer. I asked myself, is there any reason for Oda to tease a legend appearing soon in the story and for that legend to be Marco? If Oda really intends to do that, he's looking to disappoint fans. So from that alone, I don't think that the person who Oda is referring to is Marco. We already know Marco's probably going to be there. And so lastly, it's possible that Oda is teasing some of the other Yonko, such as Shanks or Blackbeard. And I really want to argue this because I do expect the other Yonko to play some role in this huge war, but I cannot argue it. Blackbeard certainly hasn't been laying dormant in the One Piece world. I really can't say the same for Shanks. And Blackbeard is the only one that really has a strong connection to Whitebeard, not Shanks. So neither really fit. Probably the most likely Yonko candidate, if Oda is referring to a Yonko, and you're gonna laugh, is probably Kaido himself. Now, we all know that Kaido's going to have this huge war, but maybe Oda doesn't realize that we know this. So he'll be introducing a legend that has been laying dormant in the One Piece world. Technically, we got introduced to Kaido beforehand, but he has been lying dormant, and there is some speculation that Kaido has some connection or relation to Whitebeard. But similar to my arguments surrounding Marco, I think that this is just too obvious for Oda to tease like this. This is something that we should already kind of figure. And so there's probably other ideas that you might be able to pursue, but I think that these are the ones that require the most consideration, and honestly guys, I don't believe in any of them. I think that the person Oda is referring to is somebody new. Similar to how Sanji had this family, the Vinsmoke, the notorious Derma 66, who we didn't really know existed in the story until recently. I think that there is a legend somewhere in the One Piece world that will make an appearance soon that we just don't know about yet. I heard a really cool idea that it's possible that Whitebeard had a crew before the crew that we saw in Marineford. Essentially, Whitebeard is extremely old and his entire crew is relatively young, so maybe he had crewmates at one point in time that may have retired, like his original first mate. So then, similar to Goldie Roger and Silver's Rayleigh being legends, Whitebeard and his first mate were both legends. Anyway, that's just an idea that I heard that I thought was really interesting, and I cannot wait to find out for sure. But yeah guys, at this very moment, the hype is immeasurable. Let me know what you think about what Oda decided to say in Jump Festa and the One Piece Super Stage yesterday. Share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always guys, have a wonderful day.